Hi, I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. I'm a coach who helps people. See, I got the hat on today. A coach who helps people professionally in a number of different ways. And I'm experimenting with Restream.io today. Over the weekend, I tried StreamYard. I'm going to try this service just to see how it performs for me. It seems to have more functionality and more developed than StreamYard. I'm going to find out. So, number one, excuse the little icon in the upper right, and excuse the fact that I'm a little late with releasing this, but I just have the idea that displaying things on multiple sites concurrently is far more efficient for me. And I've got some questions about the product that I'm going to find out as I go along. So what I decided to do today was to play a little bit of catch up on some questions that I've been asked over the last few months that I've yet to get to. And I'm doing this because I no longer respond to questions that are sent to me. I use a site called Wisio.com. That's WISIO.com. And for my page, go / the Big Game Hunter. And what you'll be able to do is ask a question of me. It's very inexpensive, and you'll get a response video from me a little bit later in the day or the next day. That'll be about 3 to 5 minutes in length. So again, that site is Wisio.com / the Big Game Hunter. So here are my questions for today. I'm going to go through as many as I can as soon as I can get them on my screen. There we go. So this person asks, how do I respond to a recruiter after a few days after she emailed and messaged? What do recruiters usually think about the candidate who's responded late? Now, I used to do recruiting. I did it for more than 40 years, filled more than 1,200 full-time positions, plus consulting assignments. I don't do that work anymore. I now coach people. I help you be more effective throughout your job search because most people do their best to fit into the pack and they don't do enough to stand out. And stand out, I mean stand out in a good way. So here are my thoughts about this. And I have the perspective of not just myself, but having talked to hundreds of recruiters over the years who we complain to one another about stuff and we celebrate with one another about stuff. So what do recruiters think about someone who responds late? Most of the time, they don't think about you at all. You're gone. You're ancient history. And it's not like they're thinking, oh, Jane must contact me in 10 minutes or else. No, they're transactional. At least most of them are. And thus, if you're one of these people that they're messaging, you're one of many people that they're messaging. And what they're looking for is fish to get on the hook and start giving to their clients to get interviews so that they hopefully can get a fee. So how do you respond to a message like this that you got and you're a few days late on? Easy. Just simply say, oh, sorry, your resume went into spam. I just spotted it. I want to respond back to you and just see how you were. Now, if it's a phone call, you can do it as, I've just been swamped. Sorry, just getting to it. Do you still need someone? Would you like to schedule time to speak? Same thing with a text. Same sort of response that basically says, I've just been working way hard. And as a result, I'm just playing catch up now. I want to get back to you. Pretty easy, huh? And you just have to think about it from a human perspective. They're not contacting you. They're contacting hundreds of yous in all probability. And thus, you want to explain in human terms why it was that it took a little while to get back to you. Next question. When you're applying for jobs, what questions are asked to determine if your personality is a good fit for the company? I don't think you're really asked a question about personality other than a couple of basic things like, can you handle working in a high-stress environment or in a very laid-back environment? And those are nonsense questions. Most of the time, what firms listen for are things that signal to them what it is that you'd be more comfortable in. So if you talk about the place that you worked at and said, 90-hour weeks, it's brutal. Well, they know that you don't want to work in a workaholic culture, do you? If you say to them, office was too quiet. Well, they know you want to work in a loud place. It's not just what you say that matters, because everyone will give the right answer, but it's how you say it that makes all the difference in the world to them. As a result, you have to be in a position where you signal what your preferences are in order to get the result that you're really looking for. Okay? So let me go to the next question. Just want to see if there was anyone in chat. And by the way, if you want to send me a message in chat, feel free to do so. I'll see if I can get to your question. If not, we'll see what happens, okay? Would you prepare for an important interview by writing questions down that you believe they may ask you and repeating them back to yourself? This is really a question about memorization. And to me, what's the most important thing other than skills, competence, is the connection with the person that you're interviewing with. So if you can connect better through memorization, do it. But you can't be sitting there going, okay, I remember, and go on from there. You have to connect with the people who are interviewing you as people so that in this way they can get to know, like, trust, and respect you. Remember, when firms hire, they're just not looking for competence. They're looking for self-confidence, character, chemistry, maybe a little bit of charisma in there, all of which add up to, we trust her, we trust him to do this job for us. No trust, rarely hired. And they may hire some people who they don't trust because they're part of 50 people there who are involved with staffing. With a project, but usually not an issue, okay? So the big thing is what you do to foster trust. Memorization is like with flashcards. Now, I encourage people more to think in terms of a framework for an answer rather than memorization. So don't sweat it. Just get comfortable with your answers by practicing the framework. And yes, I do think you should speak your lines rather than think them. Talk to a mirror, get a friend who you can do a mock interview with, give them the questions to pose to you. And remember, if they're not an expert in the field and they don't know as much as you, they're also observing how you answer the question, so that in this way they can give you feedback, not just simply on the words, but on your manner as you answer the question. So I'm not a big fan of memorization. I just want you to be comfortable with how you answer questions. Are recruiting firms really trying to assist with job searches during the coronavirus event? This is a more recent question, of course. Or are they merely collecting resumes? I don't know. And no one knows. My expectation is they are still trying to fill some jobs because they've got ads there. They may have been told, we're going to start interviewing in about 3 weeks after this passes, but we want to start looking at resumes. Or they may say we're going to start interviewing by video, and we'll ultimately want to hire someone after we meet them in person. Whatever it is, don't hold back because of COVID-19. Very simply, you just put yourself in the position that you want to develop a relationship with recruiters so that in this way they're there to help you. Let's see now. Shamante asks, have you ever been asked in an interview what happens if you get scared half to death twice? I guess that means you've been scared to death, because if it's happened half to death before, you're scared 2 times a half is a whole. So what you wind up doing is you're really scared. And if you are in that situation in an interview, what you want to do is just smile for a second and say, ooh, sorry, I just noticed I had a little bit of nerves there and just want to get back to normal. And this tends to occur with more junior people than it does with seniors, but don't sweat it. If it happens, just let it go. Move on. You're a little nervous. And if it comes out in your voice, that's the perfect response. Just let them hear that you're acknowledging the nervousness. They may have a little pity upon you and, allow you a little bit of grace for what just took place. And when you pull it together after that, they'll be really comfortable with you. Next question. We did that one already. Having 10 years of work experience, is it normal? Sorry, I lost the screen there. Is it normal for a candidate to not be able to recall the exact details of his or her college projects during a job interview? Of course. And I have to also say that these moronic people are actually asking that question of you. They're idiots. What difference does it make what you did in college? And I might respond by saying, I don't really recall that detail, but I'm just curious. What are you hoping to find out about me by asking a question about something I did a decade ago? Is there something in particular you want to know about that experience that relates to this experience? And maybe I can just move it forward in that way. Notice the idea is to take the bad situation that might freak you out a little bit about not remembering and move it ahead. So again, the goal here is acknowledge the situation by saying, I don't really recall that, but I'm curious. What are you hoping to find out from me about that experience from a decade ago and bring it up to date? Okay. And they may say, it's about the underpinnings of your experience. I'm just curious how you got to where you are. Great. Let me kind of walk you through the more relevant stuff and deal with it to the best of your abilities. Because, frankly, if they really expect you to remember something that you did 10 years ago, these people are nuts. Run. Don't walk away from these folks. Don't care what industry it's in. Get the hell away if they really care about that, because they're going to minutiae it to death. Okay. Here we go. Why is HR calling me after a final round interview? Because in their organization, they may do a couple of things. They may want to check references. That's one possibility, of course. They may want to be in a situation where they want to check to see if you're interested. They may want to reject you. That's also possible. They may also want to clarify something for the hiring manager. This is not intrinsically a problem. This is just a situation that you have to address, get back to them. If they're not available, I'll just simply say that, leave a message. Let them go back to me and get back to you and move it forward, okay? Now, someone asked, I love this, Run, Forrest, Run asks, what questions are you reading from? Answer, questions I received previously from people that I haven't really gotten to. If you have a question, I just very simply say, in the future, after today, go to Wisio.com, that's WISIO.com/The Big Game Hunter. And very simply, what I'll do is I'll answer questions from there in video form, so that in this way you can get a more timely response than these people have. Okay? Got another question. 2 more questions today. How many months are acceptable to work in an organization before moving on to the next job? I will tell you, as long as you're not making a habit of this, I'm trying to get Run, Forrest, Run off my screen. Let's see now. Never mind. I'm just going to leave it there. We'll go on. So, how long should you work for a firm before leaving? Answer. An hour? A week? A month? The idea is not to make a habit of this, because otherwise they think of you as a job hopper. Ooh. And they're fearful of hiring people who change jobs with regularity. So you want to not make the habit of this, but you have to look out for your own interests. Also recognize you're not going to wind up getting a quality reference from them. So don't make the habit of this and get the hell out of that role before you wind up in a situation where you feel trapped and your career is over and you haven't done the work that you really want to do. And I really mean that. You want to do quality work that has meaning to you and not just do stupid work. And if you have a job that'll pay you better working with a higher quality team of individuals that has bigger upside, why would you tolerate something less just because an employer says, oh, this is a bad situation for you. Oh, terrible, terrible. Forget it. Move on. Okay? Last question for today. How do you convince employers to hire you? Well, this is a long question. But if you think about what employers do to evaluate people, it starts off with they create a job description that lays out certain criteria that they need or want in someone, right? So you want to have a resume that demonstrates on some basis that you fit the role. That's pretty easy, right? You either have the background or you don't. If it's vague, you make the fit as obvious as possible for them so that they have an interest in wanting to talk with you. From there, simply, the next step is they do a phone interview. They're there to screen people out. It's kind of like a doctor who's trying to rule things out. They're trying to eliminate people who are obviously not appropriate for the role. So what do you do in the phone interview? You hit the basic talking points of the job. And one of my favorite ones is, since job descriptions are about 80% accurate, we ask them about their current thinking about the role. Thanks for making time to reach out to me. I recall the position description, but I want to get your take on the role. Could you tell me about the job as you see it and what I can do to help, so that this way you hear about the current thinking about the role, so you can talk about what you've done that matters to them and not just talk about what you've done. From there, very simply, is they get to the tell me about yourself question, and immediately you connect the dots. So you do that in a minute to a minute 15 rather than give them this lengthy soliloquy as though you're reciting from Hamlet. Who cares? Who cares? So I'll just simply say, you want to make fits obvious. And when firms hire, competence is only one thing that they look for. They look for self-confidence, character, chemistry, maybe a little bit of charisma, all of which add up to, we trust her, we trust him to do this role. Because there are a lot of people who are competent enough to do these jobs. And they really think they ace it in the interview. But there's something missing. It's the personal connection with the interview. And thus, you want to be in the situation where you're creating that connection along those lines. Competence, self-confidence, character, chemistry. If you've got some charisma, let them see it. Let it come through, okay? And then you also want to be in the situation where, as things proceed, you're asking questions that allow you to get quality information. So some of your questions at the back end of the interview also do that. Because instead of asking about the job, because you did that at the beginning, you might ask them about how they're going to measure your success early on, how they're going to evaluate you after a year to see if you were a worthwhile hire. You're going to want to find out from them when you might hear back from them afterwards. And you might also ask them, and this is my favorite closing question, is there anything that you've heard or not heard that gives you reason to question whether I'm qualified for this role? All of these really inspire confidence that you can be a solution. You also want to have stories available in advance, and part of this involves your preparation, how you get ready for interviews instead of just simply winging it when you walk in the door. Most firms ask the same predictable questions over and over again, and thus you wind up in a situation where foolishly you demonstrate that you're not a fit. You overtalk situations, you undertalk. You get answers that are mediocre instead of being convincing. Practice. Rehearse. Great athletes all practice, right? Great entertainers all rehearse. And part of what you want to do is to practice often enough and well enough that it seems like second nature. I've spoken about interviewing for years, and I'm not reading anything now. I just know this material cold. And if you're actually listening to what I'm saying, what you'll discover is this is a guide for interviewing that will help you be world class and help create that trust. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you enjoy this. And if you have questions for me, go to wisio.com. That's wisio.com/the big game hunter. And you can ask a question there. It's very inexpensive. I think it's like $30, and be happy to answer your questions. Also want to say, if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, go to my website, which is thebiggamehunter.us. Go there, go exploring in the blog. And if you're interested in coaching, I do one-on-one coaching around job search. I critique resumes. It's about hiring more effectively, interviewing, salary negotiation, networking, the whole life cycle of a search and of a career. I coach not just simply job search, but hiring, managing and leading, effectiveness in the workplace. I'm a lead singer for people in many respects to help them step out of being the second singer for the group and become a lead. So join me in that. I hope to be able to help you. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, mention that you saw this. And my profile is located at linkedin.com/IN/the big game hunter. By the way, I'm LinkedIn member 7653 of the more than 675 million people on the platform as I'm doing this. So again, member 7653. Hope you have a great day. Hope you enjoyed this, and be great.